I have seen that you were playing some Animal Crossing, as are most people.
Yes. So I was so about Animal Crossing back in high school and college. At that time, it was Wild World, and I beat Animal Crossing. I mean, I had all of the fish and bugs. I had all of the room expansions, all the furniture sets. I had golden everything. All my neighbors were my friends.
Oh yeah, they give you the picture frame.
Yeah, I just he saw that there were no more worlds to conquer and he wept. It was like that. And so
Yeah.
and so, my friends at some point had a sit-down intervention with me. They're like, Erika, you're letting this run your life. You set alarms for when things are happening. When you have celebrations for New Year's or your birthday, you're like, oh, I got to check my town. So I sort of stepped away from a lot of those kinds of games that demand your attention like that.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm extremely ADHD and I have an extremely addictive personality. So I'm like, okay, none of that. And when Stardew came out, I was like, none of that. No MMOs. But God, I got back into Animal Crossing now, and gosh, it's so great. And the whole world is with me. So
It's very sweet.
It's nice.
I saw somebody say that like this is the complete inverse of the summer of Pokemon Go.
Oh, it is.
That's true.
It
That's a
really
good
is.
point.
It's
Right.
Animal Crossing stay at home.
It's cool to hear from someone else that like Wild World was your big one, because I so often am like, oh yeah, my first one was Wild World, and everyone's like, oh, I never played that one, and it's kind of like, it's my favorite in the series. I think like I don't like City Folk. New Leaf is good. It's
Yeah, New Leaf was it was beautiful.
It's a great like iteration on it, but like something about Wild World, like the addition of making you mayor or putting you in charge of the town, like I don't like as much as you are a new person in this established town, and like you can just kind of fuck off and you're a new kid and you can do whatever.
Yeah.
How long has that franchise? I've never played any Animal Crossing. I'm going to change that very soon, but we need to, as I mentioned on a previous episode, we're making Audrey earn it. So I haven't started
that's
playing yet. Yeah.
I think it's like 20 years old, the first one, because
That's
it's
insane.
Is
Oh
it
my
really?
God.
yeah, like I think
Well, I
Animal
thought-
Forest in Japan.
GameCube was it GameCube was the first time we got it?
There was a
Yes.
GameCube Animal Crossing. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, that's the
Yes,
one that like
yes.
introduced a lot of people to it. Let's see. I'm googling it. So this is a thing that's interesting to me about recording remotely. I said this on the last episode of this being a show about being terminally online, but there is an interesting element of all of us sitting at our computers. And I don't even know if integrating that is an interesting thing, but it's kind of fun to me. Okay, sorry, I'm looking up.
I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't be a podcast if someone wasn't Googling something.
Yeah. Oh, that drives me bonkers when I'm listening to a podcast and they're like, I don't know. And then they just don't find out. And it's like, fuck, I want to know.
It's right there.
Wow,
Like,
this
you're
is
holding
fascinating.
your phone. Yeah.
Animal Crossing 2001, originally released in Japan for the Nintendo 64 in 2001.
Oh,
Wow.
And it was enhanced and released on the GameCube the same year. And then it was localized for North America in 2002. And then Wild World was 2005.
oh God.
That's wow.
And I got it right after it came out for the original
Yeah.
Nintendo DS, which I still have lying around somewhere. God, I love that original Nintendo DS.
Yeah, I loved the DS.
It's so
I
chunky.
remember my friends and I all had them, and we'd bring them to school, and at lunch we'd sit together playing DS games. I had the red one that you could get if bundled with Mario Kart, I think. Yeah, because I was like, my favorite, it's like cherry red. And I spent so much time on there. And I remember a lot of early college, I felt very isolated, but I had my DS and I could still visit my friends' towns. We could still get together and play on them. Yeah. And I, as was the case with any portable video game item, it was a way of making friends, because you'd be playing it off in the corner and some other kid would be like, oh, are you playing Pokemon, I'll play with you. That is how indoor kids meet.
Yeah.
So in that
It's like
iteration
a
of the
siren
DS,
song.
was the DS over? Was it connect over Wi-Fi? Then I didn't have one.
It was a super convoluted deal to get online, at least as I recall.
it
I
was
was a
so
child.
hard.
This
It
is
was so
this is
hard.
What, in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Like 2004-ish, I want to say.
Yeah.
But PictoChat
So
was
Wi-Fi
like
was not.
fabulous.
Wi-Fi was around, but it wasn't like omnipresent at that point, right? So you couldn't rely on having Wi-Fi wherever you went.
It was a lot of like
Right.
access codes and kind of having to know semi-technical shit about connecting to the internet. I remember being on Animal Crossing forums when I was a kid, and like you would go and swap items with people by coming to their towns, but it was always like a really involved process to get it to work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it was always a gamble if it was going to kick you in the middle of a session or not.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. Or I, as a child, would get freaked out if the person was dressed weird. And I would be like, nope, get out of here. I remember a guy coming in with like some whack outfit and a baby pacifier, and I was like, you know what? Nope. Goodbye. You can't have my cherries.
That's a good instinct. I
Yeah.
feel like that's probably served you
Stranger
well in
danger.
life.
It's like
Stranger danger.
I don't trust like this. But yeah, the local PictoChat was so great because I would sit on my friends' trampolines, all of us with DSs, and we would play Animal Crossing and Nintendogs.
Wait. Hold on. I need you to back up for a second. You had multiple friends that had trampolines.
I had one friend who had a trampoline, and we would always congregate.
And then the multiple friends would sit on the
Yes.
trampoline.
I see. Okay. Gotcha.
But PictoChat, Brian, was a thing that was basically like a little, message, like local messaging thing on the DS where you could draw little pictures or write notes and send them back and forth in like a group chat.
Yeah.
Because there would be like rooms, which were essentially like channels, and like they had little symbols that you could put in. And because the screen had a stylus, you could just do little drawings. And then it would just be me drawing titties in PictoChat and then spamming it with other stuff, just so no parents would come in and see that.
My friends were all artists, and so they had the most complex drawings, and I could only sort of like scribble. Look ridiculous.
I so wish that was still a thing. And they sort of had like the whatever the messaging note system was on the 3DS that they took away, probably for good reason, to protect the childs.
Have you seen any scaremongering about TikTok? Because that seems right now like the natural one for people to
I actually think
to backlash against.
there is extreme
No.
scaremongering, but I think that it's not totally baseless, It's
So,
a
like what?
it's like a lot of young kids on there that are absolutely, I mean, I've read stuff about like Instagram too, where it's a bunch of like 10 and 12-year-olds, if not younger, kind of having this presence. And it's, I
have an 11-year-old niece who has an Instagram account. Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah.
it's upsetting. And there was I was reading an article by people who essentially do the catfish thing where, they pose as a 12-year-old and just see what happens. And like they put their age, quote unquote age, in the bio and immediately had like a ton of creepy men messaging them. So, and then there's sort of the phenomenon of TikTok of like skewing younger and kind of having these like infantilized but like still kind of porny stuff. Like I don't know.
TikTok skews younger than 10?
I mean, it doesn't skew younger than 10. I mean, in the sense of
Just like younger than the other platforms.
it's a
like,
lot
it's
of
like
like
teenagers,
younger
basically,
teens.
right?
Yeah.
Tweens and teens.
Yes, it's a very strange place that I am still trying to understand, but I kind of don't want to fully understand. I'm okay with not understanding it.
Oh,
No.
we've gotten to that threshold
Yes,
where we don't want to learn new technology.
Erika, do you have a TikTok?
I don't have one, but that's mostly a factor of I have so much community management to do with my Instagram and my Twitter.
Yeah.
And with when I had my Twitch channel and I had Discord servers, and so it was just too much to handle for content creation, especially doing more sort of like voiceover stuff and acting stuff now. But like I love the content coming out on TikTok and I know the dances and I don't know, it's exciting to me anytime that there's a new platform for creation,
Yeah.
especially for younger people and things that are accessible. it's horrifying that there are the downsides as always.
But they're so creative and funny in a way that's
so funny and so talented. And, back in my day, when I was younger, there really weren't any accessible platforms to create your own media. First of all,
totally.
Cameras were expensive, and also traditional entertainment, like Hollywood had such a barrier. There's such a barrier to entry. And now you have your phone and you can just make content and make good stuff and put it up.
Yeah, and it's like mini
awesome.
free After Effects and Premiere in a super accessible way. Obviously, very reductive of me to say that, but like it is totally, you can speed this up or slow it down or superimpose images or text or whatever just from your phone while you're lying in bed. Like, that's so wild.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I remember, I'm older than both of you. And I remember, for me, it was a VHS camera and no editing software. So it's literally just like stopping record and then starting it up again when I was 13. That's all I had available to me.
The first movie, as we will learn in upcoming Deep Cuts episode that I'm almost done with, the first movie that was totally edited and produced on consumer grade software was a movie called The Last Broadcast, which came out in 1998, found footage movie that predated Blair Witch, but was not ripping off Blair Witch and vice versa because they were in development in different directions and at different times. But, it's about a group of kids who go into the woods to find the Jersey Devil. Spoiler alert, that movie fucking sucks. But it is an interesting tidbit that's the one that was like the first on consumer grade like editing software.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Amazing.
Wild. We should probably introduce ourselves and our guests.
I feel like that's the official
into recording.
That's like the official intro of the podcast of us eventually being like, I guess we should probably introduce ourselves or whatever.
I love the idea, like a cold open for every episode. Is some long rambling discussion, and then we should introduce ourselves.
The calling it a cold open makes it feel a lot more official. So we are now going to internally refer to that as the cold open.
Yeah, it seems to also be a rule that we, despite having not introduced the guest, we have to refer to the guest by name as many times as possible in the cold open.
But Brian, we forgot to do this last episode, but Erika should introduce herself, so we're not imposing our own introduction, because I think that's fun. But
I agree.
Oh, I was hoping that you could introduce me, sort of hype man style, like
I'll happily
Chaucer in A Knight's Tale.
I'll happily hype man you as a person, but maybe not in terms of how you would describe yourself. I mean, you're truly the biggest like bundle of sunshine I've ever met, and so absurdly talented and like physically strong. It's very intimidating.
Thank you, Leighton. Oh boy, that was a real monkey's paw wish I got.
Yeah, got him.
There.
Got him.
Right.
So hi,
okay.
I'm Leighton from Leighton Night. Brian.
And I'm Brian from Leighton Night. And our guest, would you care to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Erika Ishii. Do I say what people might know me from?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I am an actor. You might know my voice from Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator, in which I am Amanda. I'm Anna Bray in Destiny 2. I've been in Sailor Moon and Gundam Narrative and Fire Emblem Heroes. Or you might know me from my internet work. I was with Geek and Sundry. I've been on Nerdist and Critical Role. I am in LA by Night, the Vampire the Masquerade podcast show. And I just am very terminal. What do you say? Terminally online?
Yes.
Is that what you call it?
Yep.
Yes, I'm terminally online. And I'm so glad to chat with friends.
Yes, I am so glad to have you here today.
Yeah, and also, so some of you listening might know, Erika was supposed to be on the live show that we were going to have on March 23rd, which got canceled for all the obvious reasons. And so, unfortunately, we didn't get to talk to her that night, but now we're lucky to be able to talk to her now.
Yeah, and
I think
in
talking to me.
a more low pressure kind of thing, because the live shows are very. If we're just like bullshitting for 2 hours on this podcast, it's great. But, you know, we have like a hard cap there, and then it's all of us like mildly drinking and then yelling at each other. It's the live shows are like such a different vibe.
This live show business sounds amazing.
It's very fun, but different dynamic. Like Brian, I feel like it's very marked by us acting like we hate each other.
To some extent.
What?
Well, it's there's a bit of antagonism there that is definitely not that present in the podcast version of this. All because like when you are watching two people interact, the physical cues that you're picking up are really change the dynamic. Whereas if people are
so you know it's a joke.
Yeah. Whereas if we if we were ruder to each other on the podcast, people would be like, oh, why are they even working together?
Well, yeah, there's also, when we were first starting this, I think I had several friends be like, oh, this is going to be like the most chaotic content because you and Brian are both such antagonists. Yeah. And when we were talking about having Matt Watson on, which I still would like to do, and I need to hit that boy up.
Yeah, for sure.
Vernon especially was like, Jesus Christ, that's the most like evil energy of all three of you. And I was like, I resent that remark.
But it was
evil energy,
kind of true for the live shows, but I feel like it's not really here in the podcast.
It's very chaotic good in a nice way.
Yes.
And I feel like that's what
that's nice.
Resonates with people. Whatever, we're getting into meta Leighton Night chat.
No, it's true. I usually categorize myself as chaotic neutral. Most of my friends say I'm chaotic good, but I have a whole philosophy argument about that. But anyway, yeah, I can dig that chaotic energy.
Yeah, just pure chaos. Chaos reigns. So there's a thing that we've neglected to talk about for several episodes because we received an email that made me lose my mind a little bit. So Erika, and
you texted me in all caps for about 20 minutes.
What is it?
For anybody who missed this episode, and for Erika, one of the first episodes we asked for, was it advice on family? So we had people email us asking for advice, and one of the people was this woman who messaged us saying that her father had gotten into making ambient noise tracks that were like difficult.
Dark ambient.
Dark ambient that were very long, and that was fine. But then he started doing live performances that were accompanied by a nude dancer. And the emailer was just trying to like reconcile it of like, do I just have to accept my dad's weird hobby? But this person also sent us.
I'm sorry, that was
it's okay.
That was my first instinct.
That was ours too.
Go ahead, please continue.
So at the end of the email, this person included a link to listen to their father's music, and we did, and it's actually dope as fuck.
It was awesome. It's like these hour-long tracks. The guy's name is tvglitter on SoundCloud, and it's like these hour-long ambient tracks that everyone in the room agreed were fucking awesome. And, it's definitely a mood and a vibe, and I thought they were great. And, basically our advice was like, this rules, please support your father. If you're really uncomfortable, you don't have to go to these shows, but this is a cool thing.
Oh, no, by no means.
Right.
Yeah. So, that's really nice.
We received at the beginning of March this email that I am now going to read. Subject line: my daughter has no appreciation. Dear, great start.
No, what?
Dear Brian and Leighton, I've been crafting my own drone music for quite a few years now. My family has put up with my strange musical tastes, and I've mostly kept it to myself. When I decided to expand the art to include an appropriate visual accompaniment, the natural conclusion was Butoh. Pairing the slow but progressive tones of dark ambient music with the abstract minimal dance genre made perfect sense. I reached out to a local Butoh artist, and we collaborated on her milestone performance, The Rag Picker, linked here. I invited my family to the debut, and it was well received. Sadly, my daughter can't see past the brief, tasteful nudity and appreciate the deeper narrative of the presentation. I'm wondering if it's just a matter of taste, or if she's casually dismissing the conceptual value of the performance because breasts are shown. Certainly art is a subjective experience, but it's like a meal. Flavor only comes through chewing. How can I encourage her to look with her mind? I don't want her to fall into the popular mainstream of thoughtless junk. Signed, tvglitter.
Is it legit though? I mean, like,
Yes.
is it actually
Yes, it is.
like it's from him?
Yes, it absolutely is.
It's not a copycat.
I was unsure.
No. I
So
don't think so.
now, for the purposes of this episode, I'm going to drop this link into the chat, which we will also post on our socials so you can check it out. So he linked to the performance that the daughter emailed about.
Let's see. Yeah.
So if you would do me a favor and scrub through this video a little bit.
Okay.
It's long.
Well, but I mean, like, it could. What if this is somebody else that knew about all of this? Because you talked about it in your podcast before, and so people knew this.
I think
they could
the podcast
still-
has a relatively small audience. This read, I agree. I'm normally very skeptical of these things. My gut on this is that it's legit.
Well, and it's also
Okay,
like
and because even if it's not, like, I'm willing to believe that if it makes the world a better place.
yes. I mean, there's for one thing, it is absolutely his YouTube channel. This is the performance in
Right.
question. But the thing that, because I initially was like, oh, there's no way this is real. But the Gmail account profile names match in terms of last names and all that shit. So I won't go into
Yep.
it. But
And I have to say,
Right.
the voice of the email is very dadly. Like,
Oh,
this is,
and
it
I
might just be a very good writer,
Very
but
dadly
this email is,
This is
to me,
beautiful.
absolutely reads like this person's
well,
father.
my favorite bit, and I just keep thinking about this quote, is certainly art is a subjective experience, but it's like a meal. Flavor only comes through chewing. I love that
I know
so much.
That that really is very striking.
Yeah. So as a
Oh.
description to
We
people
can-
who can't watch the video right now, I'm going to say it's very different from what I was imagining based on the initial email and based on the music. And I will straight up say this
Yes,
shit
me
is
too.
so fucking dope. I cannot believe
It
it. It is
rules.
so cool.
It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen sort of like performances like that, just like I'm a theater person and like experimental art and everything.
yeah.
And I mean, this is, I don't want to say it's like not avant-garde and stuff, but it's like, it's
not that weird.
it is,
Yeah,
it's not
if
that
you're
weird.
familiar
It
with
really is
performance
not
art,
that weird.
It's not, Marina Abramovic or anything like that.
No one's
Yeah.
walking out covered in kitten blood or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty. I mean, I'm not in any sense. I'm not diminishing this at all. This is
It's-
not the far limit of the avant-garde.
It's
but
no
in any
interior
sense.
semiotics. That's what I'll say. Interior semiotics is not safe for work, but you can look it up.
yeah.
Are y'all familiar with that video?
No, I'm not.
It's a lady putting SpaghettiOs in her vagina as a performance art piece.
I have not seen it. I remember reading about it in like a class. But this is great. Like, you're
Yeah.
right. This slaps.
So
Yeah.
to describe the video, it's a dark stage and it's covered in these like beautiful tattered rags. And
The lighting is like cool lighting.
yeah, and this woman is just so the way that she moves is so entrancing, and it's her like kind of getting overwhelmed by these rags. And I'll admit I haven't watched the full thing. I've just scrubbed through, so maybe I'm misinterpreting. And TV Glitter, I apologize if I'm misinterpreting your artistic vision here. But it is so fascinating, and at a certain point, the lighting changes, and then it becomes this like like all the rags are gone, and it becomes this like mechanical fetishization kind of thing where she's like grappling with metal. And there's a point in it that has such a cool transition that like genuinely spooked me a little bit in a way that's super fun. But it's just a very evocative, emotional performance, and I think it is so cool. And if y'all will post the link, please check it out and give TV Glitter some support. Yeah.
We could. Yeah, we'll post the link. I have to say, I'm reluctant to ever like take firm sides on matters of taste. The father is 100% correct here. The daughter is 100% wrong. She should be supporting this without reservation.
Yes, I agree. And, as an artist, it's always hard when your family or people that are important to you don't support your work.
Yep.
I can understand not understanding it. I think we're all in a field in which sometimes it's difficult for people close to us to, or, older people a lot of times to understand.
Yep.
I'm very fortunate in that my mom, like, she has subscribed to my Twitch accounts, and she tells her friends, what I do, and they're all just like, what is voice over? And she's like, Fortnite. And they're like, oh, okay. But, it is really difficult because when you create art, you are sharing a piece of your heart. Mm-hmm. And to have that be rejected by people who are very important to you, that's
especially
difficult.
your daughter, especially because this seems like such an emotionally loaded performance that's very, very vulnerable, both on the part of tvglitter.
I was literally
and
about
the
to use the
dancer.
word vulnerable.
At the same time, I have so much empathy for the daughter, and I can totally understand how you could see this coming from your father and be like, this is fucking weird. Like, there's totally like that feeling, and I completely understand it.
And especially, I guess there's a nudity component, and while, that might not bother any of us, I can understand why somebody would be, spooked by it in relation to a family member. I personally would not feel that way, but I can understand where it's coming from. But I really do hope that at least the daughter can have a discussion with her father and explain why she is uncomfortable with it, and that, she still loves it. Because in her letter, the fact that she wrote to you guys shows how much she cares about him, and how she is supportive of his endeavors, and that's nice, and I think that there's positive discourse to be had there.
The other thing I keep thinking about this guy, at least from the tone or the original email, it didn't sound like this guy was a lifelong musician, and I just think about the process of someone who was not a creative or not a musician, in middle age, being like, I am for the first time going to create this new thing and then put it out there in the world. That must be extraordinarily challenging, right?
Oh yeah,
like, to do this,
true.
And maybe that's not this guy's situation. Obviously, we lack the full context. Maybe he's been doing stuff his whole life, but the way she made it sound,
but he did
like,
say this was his first time, sort of expressing it and sharing it with people.
And can you imagine having that in you for, I don't know how old the guy is, let's say 50 years, probably more in this case. Like, it's in, you have this in you for 50 years, and then like at some point you're like, all right, now's the time. I'm going to put it out there. What a cool fucking thing to do.
Yeah,
like,
especially with something
what a
that
hard
is
thing to do.
That is so raw like this. I mean, I think a lot of people's first foray, it's so scary, even when you're doing something like heavy, quote unquote, normal. It's scary enough to do that. But for something that is like, again, quote unquote, out there, that's a very difficult thing to do. And I also think, I will say, I'm totally on, I'm on both of their sides here, but I definitely lean on the dad side. The email that he sent to us is pretty passive aggressive, and I think it doesn't need to be. And I totally understand that response.
That's true.
Especially that last line bothers me a little bit of like, I don't want her to fall into the popular mainstream of thoughtless junk, where it's like, okay, bud, okay. That sounds like a certain kind of casting aspersions on what your daughter is into, and I think you both kind of need to reconcile each other's interests and pursuits.
That's a good point.
It is true. I mean, he doesn't quite call himself a genius, but he's within spitting distance of that.
Of being like, this is high art. Again, I understand both sides here, and I think it's really interesting. But yeah, that has been a fascinating saga in terms of us kind of getting another follow-up on that.
Yeah.
I really would love some closure on this. I hope they discuss things.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you both gave some real great advice about that. And oh man, yeah, that's really beautiful. I'm actually, if anything comes out of this podcast, I'm hope that people, check it out.
Yeah, I also had not heard of Buto dancing before. I hope I'm saying that right. But I was looking into it the other day after getting this email, and it's such a fascinating. I love watching choreographed dance, especially stuff that is so. I don't know. I don't know how to describe like the different level of physicality and kind of the strange movements of it. Like, I think that's really beautiful and kind of ties into the thing that I will share for the later segment, What's Poppin'. But we will get to that later in the episode.
So speaking of later in the episode, I think we should move on to answering some of these questions that we got.
I had a question for Erika based on stalking your social media. You have is the axolotl yours?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. That's Mercutio, my baby.
You own an axolotl? That's amazing.
I do. I hatched Mercutio from an egg.
What?
He was a rescue. Yes.
God.
So
Rescue axolotl.
So there was somebody that I was working for, and this is a whole other story that, like, oh man. Anyway, I was working for this entrepreneur, and one of her side businesses was she was breeding axolotls and selling them, but she'd kind of abandoned that, and so she just had these as pets. But the pairs that she had in tanks would occasionally lay a bunch of eggs, and then they'd eat them out of boredom and spite.
Oh no.
We fed them every day, and there was no reason they needed to do that. So one day I was like, well, I'm going to just take one of these and see if it hatches. And it did, and I had to hand feed it mosquito. It was the summer, so there were a bunch of mosquito larvae around, or the spring, and so there was a bunch of mosquito larvae. And so I was hand feeding it mosquito larvae until it was big enough for the pellets, and I transferred to the bigger tank. And Mercutio has been with me through all of it. You know, I got Mercutio when I was sort of like a struggling actor starting out like 9 years ago now. And, you know, he's been with me through multiple breakups and all of my moves. And,
Wait,
you know,
how old is Mercutio?
9 now.
Whoa!
I guess it would be since, 9. 9 years old.
That's an old boy. Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
I love him so much. He is, you know, when I think about it, in all of my moves, like the first thing was Mercutio would move with me, and I'd like bring him in a little Tupperware with me. Yeah.
What's axolotl
that
care
so
like?
much.
I know nothing about it. I've always loved them.
They're
They're the sweetest little creatures.
So they are so low key. You know, I just feed him a couple pellets every day and make sure that his water is clear, but they're so low key and low maintenance. You know, I think I'm doing it right. I've like looked on forums and everything, but nobody I know has one, so I can't really be sure. But he seems happy. He seems happy and fat, and you know, it's just they're really low key creatures.
That's so great.
And he's been like, I've been, you know, drawn on his tank, you know, giving him little angry eyebrows.
Yeah, that one really blew up.
Yeah,
Hold on, I have to look at it. This is on your Insta, Erika?
yeah, I think there's two on my Insta. There's one where I give him angry eyebrows, and then there's one where it's like the Never-Ending Story theme song is playing in the background.
Oh yeah, he's kind of got a Falcor thing on him,
Yeah,
right?
I need to draw the little kid on his back. I realize now for that one I should have put a little bubble that said "woo" or "yeah," you know.
A sweet
But
look at him.
love-
So precious.
He is a very cute boy. Mercutio is.
So great.
Yeah, we should get into emails, which might take us a minute to pull it up and find one that we want to talk about. So we put out
Oh, yes.
for the past few episodes, we've been doing like themed advice where we'll ask like, give us situations that you need advice on with your family or your friends or creative process.
Oh.
And this week was kind of just like a general questions advice thing because I think we might be running out of advice topics a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
Really? I feel like there's plenty to talk about.
Oh yes,
There
I
are.
agree.
I think we have to maybe be more specific with it. We've been casting a pretty broad net
Yeah.
for a lot of these advice topics, so we might try to get a little more specific in the future. I should say, anyone listening, if you have advice for an advice topic, we would love your thoughts. So let us know at leightonnight@gmail.com, where we love emails about what you think we should be talking about. So hit us up.
Oh, do you want my opinions
Yes,
on this too?
please.
Yeah, that's
Of
the whole
course.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think it's the thing about the advice stuff that appealed to me is that it's getting each guest's perspective on different things, because I think that's really fascinating. And we've totally gotten some, we did 2 creative process episodes with the TWRP boys. So that was coming from like a synth band perspective. And we had Anthony Carboni on, who, we both know.
Yeah.
And his advice was so killer. Like he came prepared, knocked it out of the park. Just great. So I found an email.
He is a juggernaut, is that Anthony?
Ugh, love him to
Yeah.
death.
The
Great.
Also got me hooked on Jenny's ice cream recently.
Ooh,
Oh,
baby.
good stuff. Yes,
I
very
think
good
Jenny's
stuff.
is delivering to my area, so ugh.
Oh, the salt and straw delivery is the one that's dangerous for me.
The new thing is finding which amazing food suppliers are delivering to your area. Like,
Yes.
I feel
Oh,
like
yes.
it's always, oh, this place is delivering to these guys, but not these. It's become, I don't know how you find like generically what's delivering to where you are, but Jenny's is a good tip.
Do you not use Postmates?
I don't like to
Yeah,
use Postmates.
Postmates, or then also you can go directly to their websites, and a lot of times they'll say, and just call them if, you like a local place, just call them up.
Yeah, because they definitely
Yeah.
need your support right now.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. If you can afford to, then definitely it's good. And studies so far are saying that extremely low risk of transfer,
Right.
of getting sick via food.
Yeah, we actually, I
so-
think tonight for the first time, we're going to order delivery. Like
Nice.
we've just been
Nice.
cooking for ourselves the whole time, but I think I've read enough now that it seems low risk, so we're going to order a fucking pizza.
I got an ad last night on Twitter for Papa John's that was this infographic that was like, we're doing no contact delivery. And it was like this step-by-step diagram of how it works for them not touching stuff. And it was posted on April 1st. And it totally just seemed like environmental storytelling in a Fallout game. Like, it was really wild, and it's great that they're doing that, but it took me a second to realize that it was like serious, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Oh my
but,
God.
But just
Yeah.
very, very strange moment. Like, if I could send that back in time, it would make no sense to anybody, like, oh, stupid April Fool's
Yeah.
thing. But
Also,
Yeah.
from an extremely uncool company.
yeah, fuck Papa John. He bad man.
I forget.
He also didn't even eat the 40 pizzas. He just
Yeah,
wasted all
I
the
couldn't believe
pizzas.
that. He came out like the next month and he was like, actually, I didn't really eat them. Fuck that guy. Come on.
For many, many reasons.
Yes, for many, 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 many reasons. Yes.
So when we get these emails, I kind of skip over reading any sort of like nice stuff about the podcast, but just know that I see it. I just don't want to suck our own dicks too much on this to be blue about it. But I read it and I appreciate it, and it's very sweet. It's just for the sake of time and kind of getting to the meat of the question. So this one is from Boston, pronouns he, him. This is kind of a big question, so I understand if you might not be able to give adequate advice on it. What do you do when you get the idea in your head that all of your friends either hate you or are annoyed with you? Despite the fact that I know it may not be true, I can't stop myself from worrying about it or worrying that it may happen. Again, it's kind of a big question, so I understand if it's outside the kind of advice you can give. And that's the email.
Ooh, I'm sorry.
Go
Did
off.
I interrupt? Is there more?
Yeah.
Is there more to that one?
No, that's it.
So this happens frequently to me, constantly.
Yes.
I think it's an extremely common state of affairs for most people.
Oh,
this
yeah,
deep
for
anxiety
sure.
that you are unloved. And there's a couple of things. Yes, you are correct in that almost all of the time it is not the case, but because your friends do care about you, you can talk to them about it. And my friends and I have this thing where you can just ask, hey, can you validate me right now? And somebody, because they love you, will say, I love you and I care about you, and it's okay. That kind of spiral you're in right now is not real.
Yeah, that's really good.
So that's the thing, Erica, you and your friends do. You just say, hey, I could use some validation right now, and then you do it.
Yeah, or just
that's
like
amazing. I love that.
Yeah, I'm I have to say I'm extremely, extremely, extremely privileged to have the friends that I do and have them. They are so emotionally open with each other, and I love them so much, and we trust each other, and we're sort of always there for each other on every level. And I know that's not available to everybody, but if they are the kind of friends that are worth having around, you can at least discuss it with them and sort of acknowledge that. And it's hard. It really is hard.
Yeah.
Self-confidence issues, and that might be something you can work on your own as well. It's definitely something you should work on your own as well, whether through professional therapy or sort of being or through introspection or meditation. therapy is great. I'm in therapy. I don't know about you guys, but therapy
absolutely.
is so good. And, it's definitely worthwhile to work on yourself in that regard, but also it's okay to lean on other people sometimes.
Yeah, and
that's something I've had to learn.
If you have that friend group, you can set the standard of emotional vulnerability, because I think it's a thing that everybody craves and everybody needs, and I find it especially lacking in male friend groups, and I don't mean to make a generalization, but it's a thing that I see so much, where a lot of men start making female friends and then are like, wait, you guys just talk about emotions all the time? What? And are like surprised that you can have that kind of vulnerability. And I think it's just a thing that you yourself need to set the standard for, of by you embracing being vulnerable, people will begin to feel safe with that. But this topic is a thing that I struggle with constantly, and a thing that I kind of had to come to terms with myself, and I certainly don't want to project onto you, Boston, is it is so much easier psychologically to project your own insecurity on other people than accept that it's the call coming from inside the house. That and I will just speak to my experience here. Very like low self-esteem, strong self-loathing. It's easier to put that onto other people and assume that they hate me as much as I hate me than it is to accept that that's my own internalized like trauma responses, or, just sort of depression, being like, I need to pin my feelings of depression on something, so obviously it must be my fault. And it's just like, it's what you said, Eric, of becoming introspective and kind of accepting that about yourself and finding the root of that feeling, because there's always a root of that feeling. And, a thing, really good advice I got recently is don't spend too much time looking at the subtext of a situation. Like, it's good to have empathy for it, but if you're ruminating endlessly about a situation and trying to imagine what another person is thinking, you're going to make it worse, because you will never know what another person's thinking unless they tell you, which is why talking about it is so important.
Yeah. The only people who don't worry that other people might secretly hate them are called assholes. Every single person in the world worries about this sometime, unless they're a monster.
A thing that I have repeatedly gotten from therapists is bad people don't spend this much time worrying about if they're bad people.
Yeah, of course not. Like, this is everyone has this issue, and I'll add on to this a little bit. I think there's a very related thing, which is not only do people not like me, they don't like my art, right? They don't like my music or my writing or whatever I'm making. And I think that's something you can also have. You can have exactly the same conversation about. And, it's all about self-worth in the end. And that's something you can, as you both said, only really fix through therapy.
Yeah, exactly. And you can totally do the thing of checking in with your friends for the validation, but like ultimately that is a thing that comes from you, and understanding that like much in the same way another person can't give you closure, and you have to accept that that's a closure is a thing that you create for yourself. You have to cultivate that relationship with yourself of it sounds so hacky, and I feel like some of the best advice I've ever gotten is the kind of stuff that sounds so trite that rationally you can accept, but emotionally it's very difficult to accept, of just like, you have to be your own best friend, and the only person who will always, always, always be there for you is you. And it's like a ground floor thing where if your self-talk is really negative all the time and you're really hard on yourself, you're just like actively creating a bully that lives in your head. And of course you're going to have a difficult time with other people because you're just assuming that they are as mean to you as you are to you.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a very difficult situation, Boston. And I hope that helps at least a little bit. Also, Boston is a very cool name.
Definitely.
Hey, do you like horror movies? Are you stuck at home right now just waiting to get Funny Games or perhaps The Strangers? Well, have we got the thing for you. In honor of our upcoming horror history series, Deep Cuts, hosted by yours truly, we've partnered with Shudder to bring y'all a special offer. Leighton Night listeners, that means you, can get an extended 14-day free trial for Shudder and access to their full library of amazing horror movies. All you have to do is go to shudder.com/signup. That's SHUDDER, and enter promo code DEEPCUTS. For people who don't listen to Leighton Night and are thus not cool, they only get 7 days. Leighton Night listeners get 14. That's 2 weeks of horror content. And if that's not a peach, I don't know what is. So now that you have no excuse, I am simply demanding that you watch some great horror movies, such as Audition, Ginger Snaps, In the Mouth of Madness, Tetsuo the Iron Man, The Taking of Deborah Logan, The Love Witch, Knife and Heart, Revenge, literally all of the Friday the 13th movies, Dogtooth, Noroi the Curse, The Exorcist 3, A Tale of Two Sisters, and so many more that I couldn't possibly list them all, but they're very good. So scoot on over there with promo code DEEPCUTS, and let's get spooky. Or else.
All right, next question. So this is from Levi. I don't know pronouns on this one. Once, a drummer in a band I was hanging with asked me the question, "What's your thing?" as a way of getting to know me. It's probably the best question I've ever been asked, as it made me consider who I actually am and what I'm doing. Leighton, Brian, and mystery guest, what's your thing?
Oh,
I love how open-ended that question is.
oh, I adore that. I adore that. And also, pro tip, yeah, that is the best kind of question to ask to get to know somebody. Like, what makes you happy? I feel like here in LA, a frequent party question is, what do you do? And that is such a terrifying, terrible question to ask, especially for a bunch of creatives or aspiring creatives.
Or people doing
and it really
internet
says nothing
stuff
about this.
that is weird.
Yeah.
Because the moment you say like, oh, I make video games. They're like, oh, what kind of video games? And it's like, well, I work with a YouTube channel that's Let's Plays. And I'm like, what's a Let's Play? What's a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
I'm a freelancer. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I was meeting a bunch of relatives or like some family reunion for like a ex-significant other. And, I had to answer the questions. Like I eventually just told people I made Fortnite. I told them like I work on Fortnite, and they're like, "Oh, cool." And like I panicked.
I heard a great variant of this on one of my favorite podcasts literally just this morning, Judge John Hodgman, which is as a greeting, instead of saying, "Hi Erica, how are you?" You say, "Yeah, this is not someone you're meeting for the first time. This is for a friend." You'd say, "Hi Erica, what'd you do today?"
Oh,
and it's
so
like,
nice.
Isn't that great? Because it starts a conversation right away, and there's you don't have to. You can just start talking about what you did that day, and it immediately gets into something specific, and that you can open up instead of like whenever anyone says how are you, how like it's like, well, what are you going to say? Like there's always the general pat answer, or you start to get real. And, that's a minefield of a question for a variety of reasons. But if you just say, hey, Leighton, what'd you do today? As a start of a conversation, I absolutely love it. I'd never heard that before. Hodgman was saying it is something an old writing teacher of his used to say. And I thought that was really something special.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Any sort of open-ended thing, because I think what's especially interesting about the question, what's your thing, is you can interpret that in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. And like even the way that they choose to interpret it tells you so much about the person.
Yeah. I'll start by answering
go for
this.
it.
Oh, yes.
My thing is collaboration. I love finding exciting, interesting, fun people to work with, and then just starting something and going. And like not overthinking it too much, but just like diving into a direction that seems fun and promising and just kind of finding a path. So if I had to pick one, I mean, this was true for me as a scientist. It's true for me as a musician, as, whatever. I love being in a group of talented, smart people and finding new stuff.
Yeah, you stole mine, but yeah, I would say very similarly. It's just making cool stuff and helping other people make cool stuff. It's I think, I don't know, a very compulsive creativity kind of thing for me, where throughout me trying to figure out what I want to do with my life and my career, whether it's, I wanted to do comics and I wanted to do game development, and I would love to eventually do like writing for TV or whatever else. I don't really care, just as long as I'm making something and telling stories and attempting to connect with people through those stories. Like, I think that's the thing that I care about most in this world. And part of it is like, driven by empathy and compassion and attempting to understand other people and their experiences. Because I truly think that, especially in an era with the internet where it's so easy to anonymize people or put them in a box or pedestalize them or dehumanize them, it's more important than ever to just like have compassion for other people and attempt to understand their perspective. So yeah, that's my thing.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. My thing, I go in so many different directions, but I have to say it's probably passion. Just everything
That's a great answer.
that I do and that I love to see it in others. I just have to do everything. Life is so short, and we have to do what we love if we can, anytime we can.
Yeah, and I think... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, and yeah, a lot of that has manifested, no matter what I do, into storytelling. I have a print of my favorite, like right next to my bed is a print by Abigail Larson, an artist I love, of Shahrazad, who is one of my favorite fictional characters ever. Shahrazad is the storyteller from 1001 Arabian Nights, and I sort of idolize her and try to live that life of telling stories to change the world for the better.
Yeah, this art is really, really cool. I'd never seen this person's art before.
Ooh, you would really love Abigail Larson.
Yeah, deeply my shit.
She like literally saved lives by telling stories, right? That was the whole point of
for those that don't know the story, is that long ago in a kingdom there was a sultan whose wife cheated on him, and so he had her executed and then decreed that every night he would marry a new woman, and in the morning he would execute her as a revenge on all womankind. And this went on for a while until Shahrazad, who was the vizier's daughter, volunteered herself. Her father had forbidden her from marrying the sultan before and had tried to keep her hidden, but she volunteered. So they were married, and on their wedding night, she started to tell the sultan a story. And he was so enraptured by it. It was tales of faraway lands, and it was stories nestled within stories within stories. And at the end of the night, as the sun was coming up, she hadn't gotten to the end of it, and she said, well, I guess I'll die now. And he said, well, okay, well, I want to hear the end of the story, so we'll hold your execution, and you can tell the rest to me tomorrow night, and then you'll die the next morning. And it happened again, and it happened for 1001 nights. And at the end of those 1001 nights, she had changed him with her storytelling, with these tales of brave heroes and strong women. And he was a changed man, and he said he'd change his ways and he'd marry her for real. And the kingdom lived in peace thanks to this storyteller. And I don't know, I love the idea of a hero who saves the day through creation.
Yep, totally.
Like that.
And also how so much of that is,
me.
People using story and fiction to change themselves, because it creates such an example or like an onus for change of like realizing that you can hear and be changed by other perspectives, or, it is such a window into deeper emotional connection with others and also yourself.
Yep.
God, what a great answer. I really love that question. I want to incorporate that.
Thank you.
That's
that
a great
question. Oh, goodness. Yeah. My sort of go-to question at parties is what makes you happy, but that is
that's
a little...
a good one.
Yeah, a little... I like, what's your thing?
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. Okay, subject line, all caps, random fishy smell. Hi, Leighton Bryant. Yeah, it's very ominous. Hi, Leighton Bryant and mystery guest. I'm a marine biologist, and my job entails that I work in places that smell like the ocean and fish. As a result, I often smell like fish. The problem is that I can no longer smell fish since I work around fish so much. How can I tell when I smell like fish aside from when people make faces at me? And this is from Dan, he, him.
I feel like this is like a metaphysics question. I mean, this is like, do we live in a simulation level?
What if we all smell like fish and we don't know what fish actually smells like?
Yeah.
And Daniel is the only one that does not.
Yeah, this like olfactory thing of what a quagmire.
This is, I mean, I have no earthly idea how to answer this question.
Because
Probably
nobody
okay, so
really knows what they
everyone-
smell like.
Yeah.
That's right. And so probably, I mean, everyone you work with will also smell like this, so they won't be able to tell. I feel like you need some kind of little, I don't know, like detector or something. Is there anything that like changes color when exposed to fish smell or something?
Yeah, I
Like-
bet we could science our way out of this one. I bet that there is a
I agree.
scientist somewhere listening to this that has an actual answer. I'm sure there's some sort of technology. I know there's ways of capturing scent and amplifying it and being like, oh, okay, this is definitely what this is, or like spectro analysis of scents. But you know, in terms of just casual everyday, what do I smell like? I wish I knew how to answer that one.
I think I have a solution. All right. Bear with me on this. Get a cat. But don't let the cat live inside, because probably your whole apartment or whatever also smells like fish. So you have a cat, it lives outside. You train it so that it, I don't know, knows when you're coming home every day or something like that. And you use the cat's reaction to you as a diagnostic to whether or not you smell like fish. So that way the cat is not stuck inside in your apartment, let's say, which presumably also smells like fish. But it has its own, it's coming at you tabula rasa every time. And if it seems particularly excited, you might be able to smell like fish. Or here's another way, actually. This might be even better. So carry a can of tuna with you at all times. And when you get home, I'm still saying this is the cat. I have the cat in this situation. Make sure so you open a can of tuna and you put it down, and then you walk, I don't know, 10 feet away, and you see if the cat looks like it's having trouble deciding which one to go to.
This might be some of the worst advice we've ever given on this show.
The cat will figure it out. Eventually it'll be like, oh, the food comes from this tin thing and not from human.
Well, then you get a new cat every week.
Go, be free. Well, and they all end up coming back because they're like, I know it smells like fish here. And then you have a horde of cats meowing angrily outside. Something that helps me when I'm like, do I smell like it as a median is like smelling your dirty clothes, which is maybe weird, but at least you haven't been wearing them. So there's like a little bit more of a distance where it's like, oh yeah, I smell pretty good. Or like, oh, Jesus Christ.
You should know what you should do. You should have a designated smeller friend.
Yes.
And when you, like, I don't know, on your way home, it's a nice way to see people too. Obviously, this is in a different time when you're going to work and then going home. But, you show up at work, on your way home, you drive past this person's house or whatever, lean out the window, have them smell your arm, and then thumbs up, thumbs down, go on your way.
I think in general, like, you don't even have to do it like that, of just anytime you're around friendly folks, just kind of do the, like, sanity check, like, hey, do I smell weird? Like, it's very easy to do. I don't know what people's comfort level with doing that is, because I feel totally... a friend put it to me the other day of, like, Leighton, you very explicitly wear your shame on your sleeve. Which is so funny to me.
Wow.
She listens to this podcast. Hi, Allison. I love you dearly. But this is a thing that I do with wonderful Allie, who we also had on the podcast, where it's just like, yo, is my skirt stuck in my ass? Like, or can you be is my tip falling out of my shirt right now? Like, can you just be on the watch for this?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you gotta have your bros.
There's something about smelling another human, though, that is that trend that, like, it goes across some boundary that even just looking at someone being like, hey, is my skirt stuck in stuck in the back of my pants or whatever.
Well, yeah,
there's something
with
more
scent, you have to
intimate
get
about
close
smelling
enough,
someone,
usually.
right? Yeah,
It's true.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think for me, at least, I I guess this isn't a humble brag. I guess I smell nice. I have constant anxiety about smelling bad, but like I'll hug people and they'll be like, "Oh my God, you smell really good." Which with most people that I am close to who do that, I'm chill with it because they're very close friends. But if a rando or somebody that I didn't know well did it, I would be like, nope. So it's about finding
If
the
someone
people
just
that are
smelled you?
cozy. Yeah.
Yeah, if a random person smells you, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
Because,
that
like, I've
is
totally done things where
awful.
I've been, like, in an elevator with a stranger, and it's like, oh, that lady smells good. I'm not gonna tell her, though, because that would be fucking weird.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of I can't think of a scenario in which I would be okay saying that.
Yeah.
Like commenting on somebody's scent. You're right.
Yes.
It is a very intimate thing.
But I think in terms of actual practical advice that isn't just us being like, I don't know, Dan, it's maybe carry around, you get your little DOP kit that you put some, like, maybe baby wipes in, you get some deodorant, some, like, I don't know, maybe some lotion that smells good. I know mitigating fish smell is one of the hardest smells to get rid of, and maybe adding something else on top of it isn't good. But even with, like, a baby wipe or something, you're at least, like, cleaning some of it off. I don't know. I always advocate carry baby wipes. They're kind of dope to have.
I would also, this is something, I mean, there are a lot of fields that have variants of this question. Like you work in a cheese shop or something, right? How
Yeah,
can you tell
or
if
you're
you
a
smell like
butcher.
cheese? I am very curious what people's strategies are this. So this is something I want to hear about from listeners is if you worked in a very, olfactorily intense environment, what did you do to mitigate that? I think that would be that's really interesting to me.
A more useful thing. And also, I'm curious, like, for my own life, like, much in the same way that, like, everyone's house has a very specific smell. And I'm sure, like, none of the people who live there could name what the smell is, much in the same way you probably wouldn't be able to describe what you personally smell like because you're so used to it. Yeah. You know what? Actually, the true solution, get a spray bottle, fill it with salt water, get a little bit of fish oil in there, make everybody smell like it. Fuck it. No one's going to notice if they all smell like it. So there you go. Air freshener, baby.
Yeah.
Air dampener.
This might be my favorite question we've ever gotten.
I was so delighted to get this, especially because the turn from the subject line where I was like, oh no, what is this going to be about?
Gary asks, what are some of your favorite songs that are over 10 minutes long? I listen to a lot of Tool and Deadmau5, but the ones that stand out in my playlist are Dope Smoker by Sleep and Beauty in Fallen Leaves by Yob. Y-O-B? I'm not sure. It's doom stoner metal, so probably not anyone's thing.
Inherently false doom/stoner metal fucking rules. Any song that's like, oh ho ho ho, here's the fucking wizard is my favorite. I'm quoting a tweet, but yeah.
That's so funny. That's a good question. I like concept albums that are meant to be listened to as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh.
I have a few pulls. My all-time favorite is Human Sadness by Julian Casablancas and the Voids, which is the ultimate song about being depressed and angry at your father. It's just like very noise rocky, but it's one that I just think is so fantastic. And it includes Julian Casablancas screaming fuck depression. Like really can't go wrong with that. It's very good. And it has like the best solos in it. It's just really fantastic. Also not 10 minutes or more. It's like 8 minutes, but Communist Daughter by Neutral Milk Hotel and then Mariner's Revenge song by the Decemberists, which Brian, I know we've discussed.
Wait, that's not over 10 minutes, is it?
No, it's not. I'm saying the two, I think they're both 8 minutes, but you can't pass up. Really? I got to roll away from the mic to do this. We are two mariners, ship soul survivors. So good. I love it. It's a song about being trapped in the belly of a whale with a man that you're vowed to get revenge on. I mean,
it's so good. It's such a good storytelling song. That's on my list of, I have a list of storytelling songs. Songs that have a
great.
story to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of Decemberists on there, I think.
Oh, of course. I mean, all their songs are about hanging out on the docks and getting revenge on a mariner, honestly.
Yeah.
Or getting a revenge on your parent who killed you, you know, all that stuff. There's a whole there's a whole album about that. Hazards of Revenge, baby.
For me, I mean, we just wrote a song that was 12 minutes long for NSP that I'm particularly proud of. That it's out. It's the Mystic Crystal, and that's like that's the first thing that occurred to me. Although probably the person was not asking about music we wrote. Let's see, the ones that I mean, the cheap answer for me is a bunch of classical music stuff that I love.
That was what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah, because Erika, you are a very talented violinist.
Oh, thank you. I am a violinist.
My first answer was going to be the first movement of the Brahms Violin Concerto, which is, I mean, it's one of the greatest things ever, right? I love it so much, and I don't know, that whole concerto is great, but that first movement in particular is one of my all-time favorites.
God, yeah, Man, I love so much classical music that I realize, how did I sit through that when I was little? I have such ADHD, and I was running around as a kid, but, like, I would sit still for classical music at concerts, boy.
Well, it's such an entrancing experience to see, like, classical music performed live. I mean, it's especially, like, it's a thing that's noticeable when you post your own violin playing videos. Like, you have it feels like you are connecting so emotionally to it, like especially watching your face and sort of the I don't know, je ne sais quoi that you bring to the way that you play. But it makes those so much fun to watch, just because it's not only the music, but just like watching your connection with the music. But when you're watching an orchestra, you feel that on such a grand scale, and you can kind of hone in on all the different instrumentalists and the way that they interact with their instruments. Like, it's fabulous. And having taken, I played viola in middle school for like 3 years.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I was one of 2 violas in our orchestra, and so it was a lot of pressure of just being like, I fucking suck at this, and the other one sucks at this and will not practice, so now it's all on me to do these like important parts of this when there's like 20 violins.
Right, yeah. Viola's got to hold their own.
Yeah, I should have picked violin.
Another one that occurs to me, and I just checked, it's 2 seconds too short to qualify for this question, but it's the title track off Blackstar by Bowie.
Nice.
Which is just, I mean, I think we've even talked about it on the podcast. It's just the album rules, and that's the standout track, at least to me. There's obvious stuff like, 2112 by Rush, which is 20-something minutes long. I mean, that's pretty low-hanging fruit with regards to this question. Any prog rock thing is going to basically qualify.
Yeah, prog rock, like Dream. There's like some Dream Theater song that
probably several.
That like, yeah. I mean, there's one in particular, I can't remember the name of it, that I remember like being really into at one point. Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at my sort of like classical and Baroque favorites list I have on Spotify. The Moldau by Smetana.
By Smetana. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's the one that goes do 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 do. And like, it's like the idea is you're like traveling through the countryside, following the Moldau River.
Yep.
Which I actually got to visit when I was in Prague, and like, yeah.
I conducted that piece in college. I conducted a symphony for
What?
2 years. Yep.
Oh my God! What?
Yep. I did basically 2 years of conducting a 40, 50 piece orchestra. And
what?
It was one of the I was a basically I was a music major in college and did classical and jazz. And one of the greatest things I did, one of the most fun things, I should say, is what I really mean. Not greatest in an objective sense, but one of the things that was my favorite is I got to rehearse. I was the music director and the conductor for a student orchestra.
That's lovely. I want to hear about more of that later.
So cool.
Sure. It's something I loved.
I have another one that's sort of along the tvglitter track, and as always with this particular genre of music, any recommendation you make good chance that the person who made it is either a murderer or a white supremacist. It's a very checkered type of music.
Wait, what?
But
Really?
Philosophem by Burzum, which is a second wave Norwegian black metal band. I reticently really love that album. The dude's been convicted of first-degree murder and is an arsonist and also terrible person, but it was a really influential, like maybe one of the most influential albums for the dark ambient black metal scene. And there's like a song on there that's 25 minutes long, and the whole thing, you just kind of have to listen to it like straight through. And I hate how much I love that album, but I really love that album.
I'm going to say two more classical things real quick. I'm a huge
Yes, do it.
minimalism fan, and there are two pieces in particular that I really love. One is Four Organs by Steve Reich. It's you just have to listen to it. It features, not surprisingly, 4 organs and a maraca player, actually. And it's just, it's the kind of thing where, like, at the premiere, everyone hated it or whatever, but it's one of my favorites. And the other thing is my favorite Philip Glass opera, which is Satyagraha, which is, sort of, it explores the themes of pacifism and stuff like that through Tolstoy and Gandhi and Martin Luther King. And Act 1, Scene 1 is one of my all-time favorite, like, just transcendent pieces of beautiful music. So Act 1, Scene 1 of Philip Glass's Satyagraha.
I was literally just about to ask if you were into Philip Glass, because I really fucking love Philip Glass. And I watched Candyman for the first time recently, and I'd always, when I was younger and listened to a lot of him, I really loved that soundtrack, having not seen the movie, and getting it in context was just like, ooh, baby, this is the stuff.
Philip Glass, I am definitely, if it's like, there's a lot of great minimalist composers out there. The two big ones that people usually talk about are Steve Reich and Philip Glass. If I had to pick one, I'm definitely on the Reich side more than the Glass stuff, but I do love a lot of Glass music.
When I was little, I remember going to a lot of classical concerts, and I loved classical, and I really, really loved Baroque and Romantic. But I remember a lot of modern stuff, including Philip Glass, I did not care for when I was little. For whatever reason, my brain needed sort of the structure of melodies to really latch onto. But as I got older, I started appreciating it more, especially, when you get context or just as sort of mood music or just sort of ambient music. I do have one poll. I think it qualifies. I think it's 10 minutes long. The Trapeze Swinger by Iron and Wine.
Oh, I love Iron and Wine.
Ooh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just like
Iron and Wine, more like iron and crying.
Yeah, it is. It's just such like a sad song. It's about, love and loss and death and God, and it's just so beautiful. And I put it on a lot of character playlists all the time, and I'll just sit and listen to it for and 10 minutes goes by, and there's crying, and it's just such a beautiful song, and I love that one.
I've listened to Our Endless Number of Days almost as much as any album I've ever listened to.
Oh my God,
just never gets old to me.
I love that. Erika, you said that you went to a lot of classical things as a kid. Do you come from a musical family, or what was your involvement with that?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I guess I did come from a very musical family. My dad, my parents were both in the film industry, but on the side, my dad used to, he had perfect pitch. And, at some point could have become a concert pianist, but decided not to. And he, like me, did not have the discipline to go pro. And at some point he made a living as a musician on Venice Boardwalk.
Oh, really? Like he was on the boardwalk busking, basically.
On the boardwalk, busking. And some of the guys in his band still perform there, or some of the guys he'd tell stories about still perform there to this day.
That's amazing.
He was one of the Venice Beach weirdos.
Wow.
And he... And when I think about it, when we'd visit my grandpa in New York. So like my aunt is a fiddler. She plays Irish fiddle with a band and would sort of visit Ireland every year. And, my grandpa played the harmonica and sort of sang. And my dad played a bunch of like guitar and bass and accordion and harmonica. And, we'd all sort of jam together. So, yeah, I mean, it's
Wow. So
really, yeah, it's just, I guess growing up, I didn't realize how unusual that was.
Yeah, totally.
And my mom sort of played a little piano and would sing. And so, yeah, we were a very musical family. And, yeah, so I grew up, I chose the violin, actually. It's unlike a lot of this sort of people. I think people always assume since I'm Asian American that my parents forced me into it. But because I just grew up with so much music in my life,
it's like, how could you not go for that?
I gravitated towards it. And so I started when I was 7, and I did a lot of, youth orchestra and did it in school and private lessons. And I sort of fell off that hardcore wagon after high school and then just picked it up for fun more recently.
Do you ever play in an ensemble or anything now?
So Kari Walgren and Mary Elizabeth McGlynn and Sarah Cravens, who are fantastic, talented voice actors, they have a cover band of the Slaughter. It's a hair metal band.
That's awesome.
And it's called Slaughter because it's like almost predominantly female.
Yeah.
And they do this show, and I join them, and I do a cover of the song Days Gone By, and that was fun, and that got me into
awesome.
it. And then I sometimes I played with friends that live in Nashville, V and Isaac and Juniper Vale. And so, yeah, I just mostly play for fun now, and just on my own. And it's been nice having some time to practice and just sort of noodle around. But yeah, thank you so much for asking. I didn't think about that actually.
And you also,
Yeah.
we should probably move on to our other segments, but I have another question. You said that your family is in the film industry. My family is also in the film industry.
What did your family? What did they do?
Well, I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, which before the awful tax bill changes that made it where it killed the film industry there, and it all moved to Atlanta and Savannah, which was just devastating to our economy and all of our family friends and all that shit. But my dad has been doing like props and set dressing and is now a Teamster, and he's been doing it for over 20 years, and he worked on the full runs of One Tree Hill and Dawson's Creek and a ton of other productions, and my mom did hair and makeup. And they met on Virus, starring Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh my God!
Which is a bad movie, but that's how they met because she was doing hair and makeup and he was doing props.
Oh wow!
So great.
Some other thing.
Did you?
Yeah, I mean, my dad did the props for the Super Mario Brothers movie.
What? Oh my God! The necklace.
He made the bomb in it.
Oh my God!
Yeah, we have like the crystal thing. So that was my film industry involvement. What was yours? And then we can move on.
Oh yeah. So my mom was an editor. She worked on.
Oh my God.
Gosh, I think. She worked up in the Bay Area on a lot of things, and I think she was the one on Silverado, or was my dad on Silverado? I mean, my dad was a camera assistant. Yeah,
I saw that in the
focus
theater
for a long time.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I can't remember what they met on, but it was a very antagonistic meeting where he was like taking her film, and she was like, "Excuse me, we." I need to get your name to, log all of this. And he was being a jerk about it. But I get, and so he worked on a lot of nerd stuff, like Star Trek Voyager. He was on, I think, 6 seasons of that, pulling focus. I remember visiting the set as a kid, Lois and Clark, Models Inc. before that. And, I think he worked on a couple of episodes of Firefly too, which at the time
nice.
I didn't understand how cool and how big of a deal that was.
Here's a question, actually, real quick. I haven't seen Firefly since it came out. Does it hold up? Is it still? I loved it at the time.
Good question.
Like, that was like, what,
I too loved it at
10,
the time.
15 years ago? How long ago was that now? A long time ago.
No, it was longer, I think.
20?
But
Was it?
gotta be. But
Wow.
it was, I only saw it, it would have been 8 years ago, and it was already considered old, I think.
Hold on, I gotta look this up. This happens every time. I just
Because it was
know my
right
hands
it was
myself.
after, it was his, Whedon's thing right after Buffy, right?
Right, yeah.
And
It's-
Buffy ended must have been early 2000s.
2002.
Yeah, okay. So about 20 years old, yeah.
It's such a fun, interesting show, and and great world building. I gotta say, as like, it's this always happens in futurism where Asian cultures are sort of integrated into the mainstream, where
Right.
it's like there are no Chinese people, or it's and they all speak Chinese.
Yes.
With varying levels of success, and that's always weird. And I think it's changing now, but it always sort of was disappointing to me to see sci-fi using Japanese and Chinese culture, like, but then not see any Japanese or Chinese or Asian people.
Totally.
So
Yeah, just like that ultimate cultural appropriation.
yeah. So I remember that bothering me. I really love Firefly. I love that world.
I imagine that there's probably a good bit of like stuff towards women that does not hold up. The last time I watched it was when I was in high school, which wasn't that long ago. But yeah, I don't know. Very particular era of TV. So this next segment is called What's Poppin'? And here's the theme song for What's Poppin'. And Brian, we're not doing the bit where we don't play the theme song and then ask the guest. It does not read. It does not read to the audience.
Whatever you want, Leighton. Fine.
Here's the theme song. What's poppin'?
What's poppin'?
That was a very good theme song. We're not doing the bit. So, Erika, this is where we share pop culture recommendations. And
I thought you were actually going to play it.
no.
I was expecting music.
Yeah, exactly. See, Brian, this is why the bit doesn't work. Normally, we do not play the song, and then Brian's immediately after 2 seconds of silence, guessed, what did you think of that song? Which they've never heard, and they have not
I
heard.
think they should have
And then they just
heard.
kind of fumble
Yeah.
for it. Yeah,
Anyway.
but the audience doesn't know because they hear the song anyway.
So what I heard is we're taking a temporary hiatus from that bit until next week. But
No, fuck you. Brian, what's poppin'?
well, Leighton, this is some deep nerd shit, but I'm going to get into it. Do you know what cryptic crosswords are? Have you ever heard of these?
No. What are
Erika,
cryptic
do you know what a
crosswords?
cryptic crossword is?
No. Tell me more.
It's a crossword where the clues aren't just like kind of trivia answers, but involve wordplay, is the short way of describing it. And they are a subgenre of crossword puzzles. And let's see, I'm looking at one right now by some of my favorite cryptic crossword creators used to write the cryptic for the Nation. And the Nation just stopped its cryptic crossword. And these guys, Joshua Cosman and Henri Picciotto, started a Patreon where they're putting out a cryptic a week. And it's like the membership tiers it is not expensive stuff. And these guys are like the best at this. They're so good at writing these clues, which can be very easy to fuck up and do a bad job at. And they just put out their first puzzle on Patreon. And I am like over the moon about this because it's a way of supporting them directly and also doing one of my favorite things.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's one. The clue is quoted from edict wrongly, which I'm emphasizing that because the answer is cited. So it's an anagram of edict, which is E-D-I-C-T.
That's right. So the way, yeah.
Yeah, I'm bad enough at regular crosswords. This sounds like the entire crossword are all of my least favorite crossword prompts.
So just to break that down, quoted from edict wrongly. So that clue splits into two parts. There's quoted, and then so imagine drawing a little line after quoted, and then edict, comma, wrongly. So wrongly is a clue that you anagram the word edict, which anagrams to cited, which is another definition of quoted. All right. So that's a typical like cryptic crossword clue. And after a while, it's the kind of thing where it has its own conventions and everything like that. But once you're in it, it is something that I've loved for years. And I can't believe these guys started a Patreon. So their Patreon is called Out of Left Field. And they put out a cryptic a week, and it's the best. So it's making me really happy right now. They just put out their first puzzle.
Not a thing I would ever pursue, but that's great. And I also think a really fun thing to recommend for What's Poppin'.
Yeah, thank you.
I used to do so many anagrams. There was like an app on one of my sort of like calculators or something that I did anagrams with. I love anagrams.
Yeah, this is the wordplay on some of these. Like, it's the kind of thing where a good clue is like a little work of art. And like many puzzle things, when it's done really well, you get this little flash of awe because you're like, "That's genius! I can't believe that some human being came up with that." It really is a wonderful little community of people. I have to ask you, Erika, what's poppin'?
I have a couple of things that are old pulls, actually, but that I sort of got into more recently. Or that I revisited recently and have brought me a lot of joy. So there's an indie game it's on Steam. Yeah, it's on Steam. It's on PC and computers. It's called A Short Hike, and it's a sweet little meditative indie game where you play this little bird and you're exploring an island. And there's sort of like Animal Crossing elements to it where you can fish and dig up holes and you talk to your other animal neighbors, but it's a linear narrative and it's sort of exploring this island, and it's all just really like my shoulders actually dropped and I started breathing while I started playing this game. And it's just, in this time where we're sort of stuck indoors, it's a nice experience about exploration, and I really liked it. A Short Hike by Adam Grieu is the developer.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I super liked that, and I played that a little while ago, like a couple months ago, but I just like really needed it at the time that I played it. Also, The Handmaiden, the Park Chan-wook film. I saw just recently, and I get so fixated on it every time I see it. It's a Korean film, and it's I really don't want to give.
Yeah, don't give anything away. Don't give anything away.
I have not watched it, but I've been meaning to watch it
Leighton,
forever.
You'll love it so much. Oh my God.
Oh, that's exactly been the thing. Like, Allie, who's also on the podcast, was like, Leighton, we have to watch The Handmaiden together because
so
it is
excited.
the most your shit.
It is.
I will say, if it's any pitch for anyone, it's very queer.
Yes. Yeah, right? Yeah, I can admit that. Yeah, it is very queer, and it is so visually stunning. It's
awesome.
just
it's the same director as A Tale of Two Sisters, right?
It's by the director of Old Boy. I think I'm not sure if I've seen A Tale of Two Sisters.
It's great.
But it is great. It is
the old
definitely like it is just so good.
I've never seen Old Boy. Does that make me a bad person?
No.
Okay.
Old Boy is also an incredible film, but very violent and difficult.
Yes.
Park Chan-wook has done. Sorry. He did all the Lady Vengeance movies and Stoker, which I was confusing with Tale of Two Sisters for some reason. But Stoker is a wild movie.
Yeah.
Also, I made the mistake of I watched Old Boy with my dad.
Oh my God.
Oh boy. Don't.
So anybody who's seen it, it's the worst possible movie to watch with your dad.
Leighton.
Oh.
The moment after that was over, I was just like, all right, I'm going to bed now.
Oh, God! Oh, wow.
Yeah. Don't watch Old Boy with your dad.
I have, again, I can't make any recommendations about who to watch or not watch The Handmaiden with without giving anything away, but yeah, it is.
It's not a watch with your parents
movie.
It is
not a watch with your parents movie. Yeah, I have recommendations about who to watch it with, but I don't know. Anyway, it's so good, and like I was listening to the soundtrack recently. It's really beautiful.
Cool.
And Yeah, I love that movie so much. I think it's my top 10 now. Every time I see it, I catch something
Wow.
different, and I just really, really want people to see it. And also, I think people started talking about it again when Parasite won, because
Yeah.
suddenly everybody realized Korean cinema really rips. Like,
It
wow.
fucking rules.
Yeah.
Especially Korean horror. Like, it's very foundational and important to the genre. Like,
Yeah.
they're just very good. Yeah. Those are wonderful recommendations.
Thank you. Yay.
Leighton, what's poppin'?
This is sort of going off of, I had a 5-hour long work call with Jory yesterday where we were talking about this guy, not for the full 5 hours, but for a good bit of it. So it sort of has to do with the performance art thing. So there's this sculpture artist and performance artist named Olivier de Sagazan, which I'm probably fucking that up, but he's French, I believe. And that's OLIVIERDESAGAZAN. And maybe don't look it up if you're easily creeped, but I'm going to drop this in the Skype chat so you can see who I'm talking about. But he does these just like really messy, upsetting, visceral performance art pieces where it's like him smothering paint and clay and hair and sticks all over his face.
Oh,
and it's just,
wow.
and like screaming, and it's really disturbing, and I love
This
it.
is awesome.
It's very good.
Yes, this is pretty.
Right?
This is some like Pan's Labyrinth type stuff.
Yeah.
It's very Francis Bacon,
Yes.
who is maybe my
I love
favorite
Francis
painter.
Bacon,
Me too. But it feels like the most like, and there's like definitely Jan Svankmajer influences there, especially with the ones where it's like his head fused with another person's
Right,
head. If
yeah.
you're not familiar with Jan Svankmajer, the stop motion artist, most of his stuff is online, and it's just like perfect. It's perfect art. But yeah, so my recommendation is just checking out some videos of this guy performing, because he really just commits to it.
Cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So let's move on to our last segment, Peaches and Lemons.
Peaches and lemons. Peaches and lemons.
Leighton, as always, would you care to explain Peaches and Lemons, which at this point
Yes.
is just peaches? But
Yeah. So, Erika, there's a thing that my aunt and uncle do with my nieces every night at dinner. I actually don't even know if they still do it, but they were doing it for a long time. Maybe they still do it. But they go around the table and everybody shares their peaches and lemons. The lemon is a thing that was like kind of a bummer, or they were frustrated about, or whatever, kind of a negative thing. And then the 3 peaches are things that they're excited about, or grateful for, or looking forward to, or just appreciated. And it's sort of an exercise in gratitude. So we started ending every episode of the podcast with sort of this emotional check-in, which is peaches and lemons.
Oof, it's gonna be a heavy one today.
So we're more like, we're not doing lemons right now
Right.
for the foreseeable future,
Good,
because
good,
you know
good.
we have enough of them.
That's good. First peach is friends. I'm so grateful for my friends and for everybody that right now I feel like I'm extremely close with, and somehow am getting even closer with. We're not talking about the lemons, but right now it's a difficult time, and I feel like communities have all really been there for each other in a
Totally.
big way, in a very active way, where sometimes you take it for granted seeing everybody frequently just out and about, but when it comes to having to actively reach out and check in with people and send them love, I am grateful that I have people doing that and that I can be there for other people.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful peach.
Yeah. And the second one is getting to create. I am so grateful that I have creative outlets in guitar and violin, and that I get to keep working and doing voiceover and making content, making art, just having a way to express myself. And I really encourage everybody to find that for themselves, whether it's singing in the shower or cooking a pretty meal, or just doing your hair different or something. There's something that you can do right now that will fulfill you in an artistic manner, and I think it's so important and integral to who we are as humans to need to do that, and so I hope
Yeah.
that everybody else can find that as well.
I totally agree.
yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I'm so grateful for technology. Third peach is technology. I'm extremely grateful that I have been situated to sort of be prepared to be plugged in with the world and to continue doing my work with technology. It allows me to get to chat with you guys. And actually, it kind of has enabled my previous two peaches, creative expression and friendship, thanks to technology. And I think it's in some ways something, it's like breathing now. Just the ubiquity
Yeah.
of our smartphones and our laptops and computers. And I know so many people who have said, oh, you got to unplug, and, technology these days is ruining kids. But I feel the opposite. I feel that they are tools for community, for creative expression, for productivity in work, and for discovering things about yourself, about learning. Like Leighton was able to give us we can watch these performance art pieces because we can Google them. And I sometimes take it for granted or am frustrated by it, but honestly, thank God for the internet and technology right now.
Yeah, I've been thinking
Yeah.
occasionally about for in the 1918 flu, like what must that have been like for people to be isolated without almost any way of getting in touch with their friends and their peers and their loved ones. I mean, I'm sure people were doing it somehow, but we have it so much easier now. Like the ease of communication is astonishing.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like another limb.
Cool. Leighton, do you want to go next, or would you like me to?
Sure, I'll go next. My first peach is very basic. I got a bunch of candles, like nice soy candles. And there's one that's my favorite candle. Oh, I should blow this out because I burned through the whole thing. Oh no, I'm burning my hands. Fuck. But my favorite one I got, my favorite candle scent is like any sort of tobacco and vanilla one, just because it's like a very nostalgic smell for me. So I've just been burning candles more, and it's like crazy what a difference just like having something like a candle going
Yeah.
is for the mood, and just just hanging out, and it smells
Dim
good.
lights and candles have it's the best. It is such a good
Yeah.
vibe. I love it so much.
It really elevates everything that you're doing into being very classy. So you take a large bong rip and shove your hand into a bag of peanut butter M&Ms, and then you're like, I am a woman of wealth and taste today, lads. But yeah, so that's first peach. Second peach is on the work call that I had yesterday. It was really nice to not only see and hang out with Jory, which is such a treat, and I love him so much as a person. He's just wonderful. But also, like, we both mutually were able to help each other kind of get some story breaks and, like, sanity checks
great.
about the stuff that we're doing on our respective games. That after we get off this call, I'm going to go through my notes from it and just kind of, like, crank stuff out, because it was very, like, creatively juicing in a way, which is a thing that I needed right now because I've been pretty stuck on stuff for a bit. And then my third peach, which I feel like is always my peach, it's just spending time with Maybe and waking up, and she just like has her head on my shoulder, and it's just like I love that creature so much and would die/kill for that creature. So I love my creature, my little beast, my awful, terrible creature.
That's so great. All right, mine. Recently, Audrey discovered headphones, and she has been walking around the house with headphones plugged into her iPad, blasting Frozen 2 while holding a fake wooden microphone, and like lip syncing while like sassy dancing, just doing laps around our living room. And she hasn't actually been she's doing like quiet lip syncing, so she's singing without vocalizing. And it is the cutest thing. She's doing like these little hip sways and like really just rocking out. It's one of the cutest things I've ever seen. And of course, the moment you ask her, "Hey, what are you doing?" Nothing. Yeah, it's just watching a 5-year-old exist in 5-year-old brain world is a joy, because they're always off in their own little universes, and it's extremely cute. So that's one. Next one is after a few weeks of not much physical activity. I started a workout program, and I've been like working out regularly for, I don't know, 20 years. It's something I never did until like, I don't know, grad school, basically, for me. And then since then, it's been a big part of my life. I mean, I'm not at the gym like 20 hours a day or something, but just regular exercise is something I feel like I didn't discover until I was in my early 20s. And
Yep.
after a few weeks of just through essentially anxiety, not being able to do anything, I finally got up and started moving this week, and I feel great about it. It's so
Yeah.
nice to have that again. And my last one is Rachel and I watched the virtual tour of the Winchester Mystery House.
Whoa!
Yep, which is fucking awesome. I think it's available. I actually think maybe they might take it down when this goes live, unfortunately, but it's free until April 7th, and it's like a 40-minute video where they just walk you through the house. I've always wanted to go to this place. I've never been, and same with Rachel. And I know it's not that far. It's just in San Jose or Palo Alto, one of those two, right?
Leighton and I
San
went.
Jose. Yeah, we literally went
you
together
did?
when we were at
Amazing.
CrunchyCon. Yeah. Yeah, we went with
That was a blast.
Alex Octopimp. And,
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and
Sungwon.
Sungwon.
Great.
And, it was
Nice.
a good, yeah. That was
Yeah,
a
it
good
was-
time.
It was a great day. That place is
It's
so
so,
cool.
great.
cool. Actually, less like ornate, a lot of it, than I thought it was going to be. But, so they have that big ballroom downstairs with the organ in it, which is incredible.
It's way less creepy than you think
Yes,
it would be, and it's more just like
completely.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
Like the craft of it, where it's like this is the $300,000 or like $1 million piece of stained glass or
Yeah,
whatever.
or like this wood that was imported from far, far away at
yeah,
great
this
cost.
hand painted wallpaper.
Yep. And in the video, they basically, it's more or less chronological, and they'll be like, all right, so this is the 1900 to 1910. William McKinley was president. This was happening over here. This was happening over there. So they set
Oh,
kind
wow.
of a historical perspective, and then talk about what was going on in the house. And it was really a fun, interesting way of seeing a place I've always wanted to see, with a free tour that is just available for a little while.
That's really interesting too, because when Erika and I were there, they had just wrapped filming on the Winchester movie that I
Oh.
think had Nicole
Yeah,
Kidman
yeah.
in it, and then came out very quietly. It might not have
Yeah.
been her, but like they were basically like, you can't take any photos here because they bought the copyright to the interior of the house.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that they actually were like, hey, people can see this now.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know if it was just available for purchase or whatever before that, but it's up there right now. So if you want to watch it, it's hanging out.
Hell yeah. Cool. Well, we all got some good peaches today. There's a lot of
Hell
stuff
yeah.
to be excited about.
Absolutely.
Well, Erika, thank you so much for coming on here. And I think my fourth peach is just I haven't gotten to chat with you in forever,
It
and
was
so it's
so
really nice,
nice
to see your face and hear your voice.
No, I know it was so nice. Thank you. Thank you so
Congratulations on Destiny 2, by the way. That's super
Yeah, that's
exciting. I was
awesome.
so stoked to
It's
see
so
that.
great.
Thank you so much. That's still wild to me. That is so wild to me. Especially, Amanda was one of the first sort of game voices that I ever did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
and it was
gosh,
for
I'm
sure
so-
one of the things that put me on the map. So
Oh my
That's
god,
awesome.
that makes me so fucking happy.
Yeah.
I mean, I love watching streams and Let's Plays where when your "I love you, Dad" line drop happens, everyone bursts into tears. Like
that was
it's the best.
I mean, that was such an emotional moment. I remember recording that,
Yes,
Aw.
yeah, that was such a strange time.
Yeah.
But where can people find what do you want to share that you've just worked on or that's out that you can share? Or where can we find you on social media?
So I am at Erika Ishii on Twitter, at the Erika Ishii on Instagram, and I think by the time this comes out, I think the Kickstarter will have wrapped, but we did a movie in
Oh.
Japan. Jen Ravenna, who is an incredible artist.
This was like a few months ago. I remember you were posting about being over there. This is what that was a
Yeah,
part of?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so in February, I went to Japan and we shot a short film called And Then. It is a queer girl meets girl story about art and isolation and belonging and missed connections, and it's so gorgeous. It looks visually stunning, even just from the previews that we've gotten back. And there was a Kickstarter, and it got super duper funded, and the hope is that we get to go back and shoot some stuff that we had to cut due to budget reasons and time restrictions eventually. But yeah, just please check it out. And Jen is, she's an incredible artist, an incredible cinematographer, but now, boy, can she put a movie together. So I'm excited about that, and please check that out. It's called And Then.
Well, thank you so much. This was wonderful. And to listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we've been getting like a lot of really positive feedback, and just like some cool new opportunities coming up, I guessed, and and fun guests line up is what I meant to say. Yeah, thank you. I hope you're all doing well and that you're staying safe. And remember, you can email us or tweet us anytime. And, if you want, I would love to do the general advice and questions more, because I really like the variety of stuff that we got.
I think maybe, what do you think, every 10 episodes, maybe? Like, I don't know if we necessarily want to stick to...
I would love to do it more frequently. Sure. Whatever. Yeah, we would love to hear from y'all again about what advice topics or question topics that you would like to see. So just let us know. And we love feedback in general. So we love you very much. Is this the end of the podcast?
This is the end of the podcast.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Leighton Night is produced by Brian Wecht and Leighton Gray. For more information, visit leightonnight.com. That's LEIGHTONNIGHT.com. Also, please follow us on social media. On Twitter, we're @Leighton Night, and on Instagram, @Leighton_Night.